Welcome, everybody. So I am going to jump straight into the presentation. I'm hoping I'm not going to take the full 15 minutes because the time that we spend chatting will be really what we're looking for. So let me begin. Okay. Is the share clear to everybody? Can you all see it well? Excellent. Thank you so much. So today's forum is basically about where cash flow leaks. You know, we're in a time where there is abruptions and where fuel prices are playing games with our cash flow. And, you know, a lot of businesses start panicking and we look at increasing prices or pushing sales harder when, you know, logically we could look into our own business and look at where the cash flow is leaking there as another form of protecting ourselves against things that we cannot control. So this is really what this morning is all about. So the first thing we're going to look at is profitable companies run out of cash every day. Now, when I say that, I mean you are profitable on your figures. You know, if you look at your income statement and that kind of thing, you're making a profit, but there's no money in the bank. And when there's no money in the bank, you can't pay suppliers. You can't pay your staff, etc., etc. And profitable companies go bang and are liquidated every day. The liquidations are almost double from 2025 to 2024, and it's not getting better. Okay, then we have to consider the why. Why do profitable companies run out of cash every day? So most businesses focus on, when it comes to making money, sales. They look at their profits, they look at their costs, their operations, but cash flow is where our survival happens. You know, if we don't... Morning. So where we don't have strong cash flow, none of the other sections of our business can actually hold together.
A set of most famous papers by special models.
Folks, can I ask you to please mute yourselves, if you don't mind? Thank you so much. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that without cash flow, we can't make sales. Profits aren't possible. It doesn't help us to save costs because we've got nothing to save, and we can't facilitate operations. So cash flow really is the stability. It secures the future of your business, and it impacts your people. All right, and cash flow is not luck, folks. Okay, it is a business system outcome. A lot of people think that cash flow belongs to the credit department. I'm going to show you now why it doesn't. Okay, it's a business system because you have to have the right customers. You have to have the right sale. Folks, if you market to customers who can't pay or won't buy, you're wasting money. If you don't have the right sale with the right margins, the right terms, etc., you're not making money on that sales. Then the right delivery. Operations is probably, something we can have a forum on its own. And we sort of accept operation losses as just operation costs, which is not necessary. And the right cash processes, debtors, creditors, finance, that is all important. And all of those things together give us a sustainable cash flow. So cash flow really is a business system outcome. It's not luck, and it's not based on just the credit department. Okay, so when customers stop paying, what happens? Most businesses ask, why isn't credit collecting? The better question should be, where in the system is cash getting stuck? Every department either protects cash or it leaks cash. So every department does influence cash flow, all right? Cash flow begins long before the invoice arrives, and it actually continues long after the payment is received. Okay, every department either protects cash or leaks cash because the movement of cash is influenced by decisions that every single department makes. So again, I'm going to say that cash flow is not a credit department outcome alone. It is a business systems outcome. Okay, let's have a quick look at the business systems. I'm going to run through these. We can discuss them deeper later if you'd like to. So a quick look at marketing. Okay, cash leaks in marketing with untracked spend. You know, we spend and we spend, but we don't measure the outcome of that spend. To the wrong audience. We just throw it out there. You know, we don't know who our audience is. We don't know who should be buying from us, who's got the capacity, who's got the want, etc. And inconsistent activity. Then sales. And, you know, sales is not our enemy, folks, especially for those of you that are in credit. Sales and credit are basically the same department. I've always seen credit as after-sales service in a certain manner, but sales is not the enemy. So we lose sales or profit through sales through discounting. You know, when salespeople are only measured on turnover, they want their target at the end of the day and they will discount to maximum that they can discount to just get that sale. We're losing money. Wrong customers. They try to sell to customers who actually don't need our product, or they sell the wrong product to the customer. Pressure selling. No terms discipline. In other words, they will give the customer 120 days verbal agreement without, you know, processing it through management just to get the deal. Special and unusual production requests. This is a big one, and we don't realize how much money this costs us. You know, the customer could ask us, no, they want 10 deliveries twice a week. Sales will just say, yes, we can do that. But they don't consider the cost involved in operation with extra staff that's involved and all sorts of things that cost money to do this. Quick look at operations. Overproduction, mainly in manufacturing. That's when we don't do proper forecasts, etc., etc. We overproduce and the stock sits in our warehouse instead of producing cash. Excess inventory, the same thing. Delivery failures. Folks, when we send out the wrong product or the wrong amount of the product. Quality failures. When we manufacture and we don't check our quality before we actually produce it, we check it afterwards. It costs us rework. You know, there's just so much to discuss in operations. We can't actually discuss it in this forum, but this is a good place to look for where cash flow leaks. Finance and administration. Now, this excludes the credit department. When finance pays too early, when we have missing or non-claiming of credit notes, errors on invoices that are sent out, that delays payments, etc. Not using early settlement discounts strategically. You know, even a discount of 2% per month if you pay on 30 days or 15 days. If the cash flows allow that, it's a return on investment of 32% per annum, if you think about it. There's no other risk-free investment like settlement discounts. And there are some departments that just because they don't get round to it, don't get settlement discounts. Delayed or incorrect invoicing. And then the credit department, we are not immune to this. When we have no or an inflexible credit policy. This again is another forum on itself, the credit policy. Credit policy needs to be a living document, folks. Something that is flexible when it needs to be. It should be the exception rather than the rule, but we can't live and die by policy. This could cost us sales, it could cost all sorts of things, customers, etc., etc. Weak customer vetting and credit limit maintenance. You know, a lot of us think that we open the account and then we can forget about it. We should be vetting our credit limits every 6 months. Slow collection activity. For example, sending 10,000 emails that get ignored instead of picking up the phone. Not tracking comments that is made. And unresolved disputes, where we don't give the proper information through to whoever must resolve the disputes, or we don't follow it up, and payment promises not managed. You know, we should diarize these things. So a lot of cash is leaked in the credit department if we don't have proper systems and procedures and disciplines. Purchasing. No negotiated terms. So, you know, I pay you immediately or within 7 days of getting the invoice. Folks, purchasing should negotiate terms, 30 days, 60 days. It keeps our cash cycle going. Duplicate orders. It's amazing how many times this happens. Over ordering. You know, we don't know the market. We order because it's cheap or because it's on special or because prices go up, and that stock sits in our warehouse for 3 months. It is just as damaging as giving a client 90-day terms. No contract discipline. In other words, we have agreed that these are the prices you're going to charge me, and we don't check the invoices to make sure that they charge those prices accordingly. Customer service, another big one. Slow query resolution. Inconsistent or incorrect information given. Have you ever tried to phone an insurance company or a cell phone company? Every person that you speak to has got a different solution or a different story of how it works. Unauthorized goodwill credits or refunds. It's also incredible how much this happens. No feedback loop to credit or sales. You know, we'll raise the query, they'll sort it out, but we never know about it. You know, 3 weeks later, we see the credit note on the system, where we could have actioned it 3 weeks ago and gotten the payment for that short payment, for example. Leadership alignments. Okay. This is probably the most important element where cash flow leaks, where everybody should be contributing to sustainable growth. That only happens when leadership is aligned, in agreement, and they work together. Do you notice the pattern here? 1 week process creates pressure elsewhere. So the cash flow is not a credit department outcome. I keep repeating that. If there's one thing I want you to walk away from today is this, please, that it is a business system outcome. If you have a look at marketing, what they do affects sales. What sales do will affect operations. How operations work affects finance. How finance work affects credit and vice versa. It is all it's a circle. And if one portion of that circle is broken, we are all hurt by it. So, what does a strong cash system look like? we've got the right customer, we've got the right sale, we've got the right delivery, and we've got the right cash processes. And they are all supported with aligned leadership, which results in sustainable cash flow. An unpaid invoice is often the symptom. Okay, but the business system is the cause. So, credit professionals are custodians of sustainable growth. We're not debt collectors. We're not administrators, folks. Custodians of sustainable growth. So, I can't help but put this in. Every single part of the business is dependent on turnover, profit, and cash flow. I'm not saying this derogatively, but from the tea lady to the CEO should be concerned about all three. Okay, so credit must be concerned about turnover. Sales must be concerned about profit. Finance must be concerned about turnover and the cash, obviously. Every single department must worry about this. Again, you know, if we don't all consider turnover, profit, and the cash flow, the business won't flourish. You know, I often hear sales say, we are the heart of the business. Without us, no business will survive. That is not true, because sales without profit is just activity. And profit without cash is pointless. We all need to focus on all of these things. Okay, it's not, again, credit is not a department outcome. It's a business system outcome. Okay, so now we come to the fun part, discussion and questions. So it will be very interesting to hear from everybody, if possible, where you think that cash flow flows out of your business, that it doesn't have to be. When you comment, or please put your hand up, then I'll give you a space to talk. I'm going to ask you please to introduce yourself, just your name, what industry you're from, and possibly what department you're in. And folks, please, we want to hear also from those of you who are not in the credit industry. You know, some of the most incredible inputs come from people that are outside of credit. And those who are new to business and those who are new to credit. I'm going to ask that we all please just keep our comments down to about 3 or 4 minutes so that each of us has an opportunity to talk. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and okay, if I can figure out quickly how to stop sharing. Oh my word. Okay, this is not like Zoom, clearly. Can anybody help me? Share?
Yes, there should be. Is there not a little share button on your top thing? It's got an
Yes.
up arrow. And just press that again. It should say not share. Is it working?
Okay, this thing is refusing to quit the share. So perhaps it's a good thing so that we can have a look at this little cash flow item and have a discussion from there. So please, folks, has anybody got anything to add? Mark.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Can you hear us?
May we see your face?
Yeah. This is Kazi from Bangladesh. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Kazi. Can we have a look at you as well?
Yes. Yes. And thank you so very much. It's a great opportunity as well for me because I am living in a third world country. And I am very pleased to connect with the World Credit Professional, and also your presentation that is very nice. Yeah, I'm working in Bangladesh in a company more than 8 years in credit and professional audit issues. My question is that cash flow is very important to run a business, no doubt, undoubtedly. But compared to the credit, how can we keep our cash flow increase parallelly to how to keep our account receivable? That's the very crucial, maybe, from us to sustain our credit growth, because we need to increase our sales. Parallelly, we want to keep our outstanding as low. So that's a very much tough for us.
Okay. There were 2 or 3 questions in that.
Yes.
Okay, so you want to know how to keep your outstandings low. Am I understanding your
Yes.
questions correct?
Yeah, and parallelly with sales. What should be the optimal ratio that we can keep to save our receivable and outstanding also?
Okay, with not decreasing sales.
Yes, because sales is the main process. In spite of decreasing sales, how we can comparatively for a sustained credit growth, what should be the right process for
Okay,
this?
so what I'm going to go back to here is the credit slide. Okay, let me do this. So we are very much now looking at the credit department. Okay.
Yes.
So when I answer your question, and please, folks, I would love. Does anybody else would anybody else like to comment on this question before I answer it?
If I may, I think it's a very good question, and I think it's one of the things that's critical to us all to achieve what we all want to achieve. Really, in this question, is that the perfect answer is if it's a culture all the way through the company, and it starts at the very top. That yes, of course, we want sales; they're important, but we want to get paid on time in line with what the credit policy says or what terms are agreed with the customer. And that's the essential part. You said earlier, Susan, there's always frequently the conflict between ourselves and sales. And that's because there is no communication right at the very beginning. And the whole point, as you know, as we all know, the whole point of raising invoices is to represent the activity of the sales. So really, it starts at the very top with the chief executive. Really, that that the terms that are signed for by the customer are accepted by the customer, and the sales guys and everybody has to accept and respect that. And that way, that actually is the key to every robust company that manage to achieve everything they want to achieve.
I understand. So what you're really saying is credit should be involved with the discussion when the sale is made, so that we do not sell to the wrong customer at the wrong terms, etc., etc. Because what is the point of sales activity without profit and cash? But
Yeah.
we can facilitate sales with a reasonably flexible credit policy if we take into the account the cost, for example, of extended terms, and the cost of unusual production requests within the price that we're going to give, so that we don't lose sales. I mean, we don't lose profits there, and we still manage to get our collection. So it's all about communication, Mark, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely right. And the points you raised there about extending credit or ad hoc orders, etc. If the culture is ingrained right at the very beginning, the first question everybody involved is like, what's in it for us? Is our profit margin maintained? That rather than just saying, yeah, we'll give them an extra 60 days, or yes, of course, we can make this bespoke product, or we can ship 3 instead of 300, 500 kilometers away. Yeah, no problem, Mr. Customer. And one of the difficult things we all encounter in this decade is that in the previous decade there was 0 interest rates. Right, so the cost of short-term borrowing to support unpaid receivables or high overdues wasn't particularly a problem. Now we've got high interest rates. Now all of a sudden it's become a problem, but the culture is still as it was in the previous decade. So that's our biggest challenge, is to remind. It's kind of ironic, really, reminding the CFO that the world is not what it was 7 or 8 years ago. And this is where the main efficiencies are made, actually, is everything that you're saying in this session, Susan, to get paid on time, basically, is the most surefire way to maintain that profit margin. And going back to the original question, not to have any negative impact on sales.
Also anybody, thank you, Mark, excellent. Has anybody else got anything to add to that? The question here is, how do we increase cash flow without impacting sales negatively? Okay. Another thing that we can do is I call it go and see. Sometimes customers will use us to grow. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. But we need to go and have a look and see if they are in fact sustainable and if the growth is real. We could make a lot of money from them in the future, but it would cost perhaps a lower profit margin on a particular sale. Kevin, did you want to add anything?
Hello, yeah, I'm Kevin, and so I'm an author of a governance architecture, if you like, and some of the things I'm hearing from you resonate with other industries, and I think the same issues apply in finance and in credit control, and it's really quite interesting to see how you define that in a different way, but I think I see them as a similar problem. And what was very interesting there was you said about accountability and who the custodian is. And I just wonder whether that's something that if you were applying that across your systems, whether you think that would have a different outcome.
I honestly think if this was applied throughout every system, turnover, profit, and cash flow, that all businesses would have a much healthier, sustainable growth. If we all worried about turnover, profit, and cash. If we were all accountable for turnover, profit, and cash.
Yes. Huh? And what interested me there also was you said about individual departments. Again, that just says to me fragmentation and degradation of information and transfer over time. That just says to me all the same issues, but in a different environment. So my environment isn't finance. I don't come from a finance background. And you asked earlier, you'd like to hear from people that don't come from a finance background. I don't, but I still hear exactly the same issues. And I hear the same issues in all types of sectors and and companies. It could be fire, it could be fire safety, it could be private renting section, it could be councils. You're all saying a very, very similar thing, and it is really all about the degradation and the fragmentation of information. And that seems to me to be one of the single largest things that you're all identifying as being quite a costly thing. And what you said about you either protect cash or you don't, you leak cash, that to me resonates with everything I hear from everybody else. So that was just really my comment at the moment. I don't know if that helps anybody, but you're not alone. Let's say that you're not alone in your industry.
If I'm not wrong, Kevin, you're in architecture.
No, I'm not in architecture. No, I've spent 40 years as a builder, owning company, being well, I say a builder, but yeah, I was a design and builder. But yeah, and most recently, I became an author of an architecture around governance, because over my working career as a hands-on builder, I saw lots of issues, and they all pretty much what's happening here. They all center around a certain thing, and my passion is empty homes and empty buildings, and that prompted me to write about them, and then further decided to try and do something about it, and then I wrote the framework, and that's where I am today, really. So not really an architect, but or in architecture, more an author of a governance architecture from experience as a builder, which is quite unusual apparently.
Okay, now thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate your input.
No problem.
If I may, I'd like to pick on Jenny. Now, Jenny, you are you are the poor lady that we hand our accounts over to when we cannot collect. What, in your opinion, is
it's 25,120.
what, in your opinion, is the biggest issue in where cash leaks?
I can only give a response related to my hands-on experience with debtors. You know, the internal workings of the credit department. Each one has his own unique set of rules, their own unique set of terms, their own unique decision as to when they're going to give a little bit of leeway and when they're going to pull the rope a little tighter. So on my side, most certainly the economic climate, things like the war in Iran, fuel, affect small businesses, and they would rather pump money into overheads and keeping the business alive than servicing historical debt. They'd revert to a down payment proposal where they get a soft landing. In effect, the creditor is financing the business. A lot of them just shut down. If they don't have money, they just shut down. And I think that's one of the biggest leakers, is when you've lost relations with a debtor and he no longer worries about you as a creditor and prioritizing his financial obligation to you. Escalation certainly does alleviate some of that here and there. But if you're dealing with a belligerent debtor who has no intent to settle a debt or prioritize it at this stage, that is money that's in limbo, and it'll be in limbo until that debtor comes to the party and sorts it out. If you proceed with legal action, it's further cash flow that you've got to pump into a root or a cause of action that may not yield a result for you. It may just get you a judgment at the end of the day, but it does nothing for the cash flow in your business. So from my side of things, bad delaying debtors, I would say to people to escalate, whether that's to a debt collector or to an attorney firm or to a management within finance, escalate it rather sooner than later.
And how do you find the documentation that is given through to you? Ruth has lost her voice, so I can't pick on her. But the credit application forms and you know, the supporting documents that go with the handover that people give you. Do you find them often to be insufficient?
No, with the customers I deal with, most of them have a solid credit application in play. They either have a deed of suretyship signed, they are covered with costs where applicable. We do try and recover that for them as long as it's in a credit agreement. With most companies, I think after COVID, many people hit a bump in the road. And I think after that, they tightened their belts and notched it up a little and made sure that their vetting systems were in line with what was required. Again, that would also be something that if you haven't done and do frequently, that I would suggest you do. Things change between 3 to 6 months in any given business at any given time.
Okay. Is there anybody else here that works directly in credit management? Because I'd really like to discuss the okay, Ruth is saying here, no contract, no recovery kind of thing. So we do realize that by now we have got a problem with communication. Okay. Where there are gaps in the circle. Monique.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I actually work directly in credit. I'm a credit manager, but I've been in credit control for about 18 years. And I've also seen how things have changed from 2007 up until now, before COVID, post-COVID. And I think from my side, and I think the gentleman was Mark, communication is definitely important. I still find that one of the biggest gaps is between sales and credit. Everyone says a sale is not a sale until it's cash in the bank. However, what leads up to that sale, and I feel like us that sit in credit, we are salespeople as well. We should actually accompany the salespeople when it's time to kind of, once the deal is sealed, especially when it comes to paperwork, because yes, you are providing a product or a service, but you're providing that product and service on credit. And that comes with a different set of rules, whether or not you are insuring your debt or whether or not you're actually doing it based on your own credit vetting process. And also to ensure that you need to hand over when it comes to the invoicing of it. Many times I find that because the right questions are not asked to customers from the get-go. What is your requirement when it comes to invoices? What is your expected payment terms? What is your process in terms of invoice handling? How do I send you a statement? So by the time that onboarding has happened of a new customer, for instance, and now it comes to, okay, I need to collect, it kind of falls apart because now the customer says, oh, but you didn't do this and you didn't do that. I didn't get my invoice, or my invoice wasn't uploaded. And because everything is segregated, the credit function is purely for me to collect. So I don't see anything other than, okay, we've got a new customer, because the vetting has happened on from another department. Invoices and orders are taken from another department. All I know is I've got a new customer. I've got this outstanding. I've forecasted for XYZ. I'm assuming my customer knows. I've already sent my introductory pack. And then just before that payment needs to hit the bank, I'm told, oh, but you never followed our process. I think that entire integration, it doesn't always happen seamlessly for there to be a strong cash flow. That's excluding the operational issues that you also have that feeds into credit, because you would find that now you become an administrator, because if you do not sort out the query, you're not going to get payment. And finance looks to you as accounts receivable. You need to get the money in. So now that burden then falls on you from an operational perspective. So it's a bit of a catch-22. So we kind of sit there with a lot of hats. at the end of the day, because you do start to get too administrative. You do start to get too operationally involved, all because you want to ensure that cash flow is seamless and that your forecast is seamless, and that when you are saying that, hey, I'm expecting 30 million, 30 million is hitting the bank.
Okay. Yes, I understand what you're saying. Does anybody have a solution to this before I give mine? Come on, folks, please, we want to hear from all of you. What do you think is a solution to what is clearly a lack of communication between departments? Especially in the bigger departments, in the bigger companies, where even the credit department is sort of split, between credit vetting and credit collections.
One of the key things, and of course where you and I are particularly invested, Susan, is in training. Right from the get-go, whatever department, whether it's order entry, indoor sales, outdoor sales, our own teams, finance people, I think it's comes back to what I was saying a little bit earlier about the culture side, but the culture is the training, to make people really aware of everything that you've raised in the presentation, and how important it all is. And what we're all about at the end of the day is, we're, as in credit control, and did everybody else, we're responsible ultimately for the profit margin, right? But that only tends to get mentioned when it's time to talk to the shareholders and so on. And it's a minute by minute activity, and everything else that goes on ultimately is all about that, isn't it? So yeah, it's really training, and it's surprising how, from our experience of what we do, how the knowledge is so poor, to be frank. Even people working in the credit and order to cash area, particularly in multinational shared service centres. And that's a big thing that's sort of heading towards South Africa and so on, BPOs, etc. The knowledge of the real world is scandalously low. People are trained on process. You do this, and when anything outside of a process, you give it to somebody else. But that's not business experience, right? And that's what's really lacking. And that leads to a lot of other things as well. All the points that you've raised and have been mentioned here. It also leads to things like high attrition rates, poor performances, poor KPIs, low project success. Everything is connected, and ultimately they're all related to the same objective. But yeah, the investment in training is essential, really, and right from everybody's onboarding. It's I would say that's a critical factor.
I agree. Kevin?
Yeah, what I'd like to add to that is that, again, from what I'm hearing, I would say that the success at this moment in time sounds as if it all depends on two things. One, being able to stand by the information that you've received, to know that it's actually not been degraded and that it's genuine. And two, that it relies upon good people, which feeds into your training. But good people, basically, you're relying on whether they have a good memory as opposed to whether they have a sound practice or a sound governance process.
Particularly in South Africa, and I'm going to say this, we don't use tools that we've got available for communication efficiently. But before I go there, I do want to mention the training thing. Every single credit controller should understand how the whole business works. Not every company has got such a thing as induction. But we really should understand how every one of these departments works so that we can identify where the cash leaks, first of all. And number two, so that we've got good relationships with the heads of these departments so that we can discuss the issues with them. I mean, we have got so much information at our disposal. We know how many credit notes are passed, why they've been passed, how long they've taken to be passed. And if we don't communicate those issues through to operations, for example, they're never going to fix the root issue of it. But we also need to understand our product, and we need to have a basic understanding of operations to do so. The one company that I worked for was incredible. Every head of department used to meet once a month, and we would have a business plan. Every department would have a business plan for the year, and we would share that business plan with each other. But he would also make it very clear what the company's overall business plan was, so that every single division or department worked towards the same outcome. We knew what the business goals were. We knew ultimately what we wanted to achieve. And when we got together, I understood what was happening in sales, what was happening in marketing, what was happening in HR, what was happening in health and safety, and they understood what was happening in our department. And there we used to share what we need from each other. And that should be more common. That really should be more common. Albin, I would really love to hear your input on this. How do we produce just from our side, how do we actually get the order to cash up and running without putting our jobs on the line?
Thanks, Susan, for your request. I think basically all credit individuals should have a clear sense of judgment, even how to negotiate, and also this cross-functional collaboration becomes very important because that is the key which holds the whole business process together. When everybody is aligned on the sales, on the profit, on the collections, and everybody works to the same objective, that is the cash flow, everything falls into the proper perspective, and that's where we can achieve more and also have sustainable sales.
Yeah. All right. So yes, the whole thing of today really comes down to communication.
True.
And if it's not something that is done in your business, perhaps we should begin having some kind of, or creating a relationship with the head of the sales department, creating relationships with marketing and operations and so on. It's possible.
Correct.
Huh?
Yes. In fact, once you explain to sales what are the risks involved in a negotiation or in a deal, and they understand the technicalities and the difficulties, and what is going to create for the cash flow and all that, then the thing is, once they understand, they will definitely join hands with credit and help you out in the process. So the more you get involved with other department and you explain what are the risks and problems which we will face in the future if we do not get this corrected now, and once they understand this technicalities and the difficulties which we are going to face in the future, they themselves will come and join hands with you and will protect the cash flow of the company.
Thank you. Thank you, Albert. Look, folks, in reality, it doesn't always work because we have to have that aligned leadership.
Yes.
If that aligned leadership is not in place, you can't do more than what you can do, but I think we can give it a try. Now, Lee is a conveyancing attorney that that works in South Africa. Lee, can you relate to any of this?
No.
No.
I must say, because my small business is run so different to any of this that you've been explaining and chatting about. So I can appreciate the logic of it, and I can appreciate the common sense of everything that's been spoken about. But and also the nature of my business. Yes, there is cash flow, but yeah, it's not sales, it's not delivery, it's something completely different. So, and being small, we're small, we're 12 people, 12 ladies, very efficient, very self-driven. The only thing I could relate to is perhaps leakage when it comes to paper and ink. That within departments there is way too much paper being consumed and ink from the printers, but that was it. Yeah.
Your 12 ladies, are you guys in constant communication with each other?
Yes.
Okay, that's why you win.
Yes, and being smaller, the nature of it is it's just easier. It just doesn't get top heavy. It runs far more efficiently than big companies. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to definitely respect everybody's time here. We've got 5 minutes left. And I would like to thank you all for taking the time to come through and to give your opinions and add to the conversation. Folks, let's continue the conversation. If you want to talk about it a little bit more, please contact me. I love this because, every time we get more input, we learn more. We learn all the time, and we can make that impact where we really are not administrators, but we are custodians of sustainable growth. That is a big thing. We need to change the thinking around credit is just administration to we really are custodians of sustainable growth. So please take my phone number down. If you would like a copy of this recording, I'll send it to you with pleasure. I'm going to post it on LinkedIn if nobody has any objections. And again, thank you dearly for your time. It was great. And I hope you will join us next month when Mark is going to be facilitating a very, very interesting conversation. Don't miss it. Okay, thank you, folks. I appreciate your time. Take good care. Until next time.